Any changes to the agenda? Nope. Call for a motion to
Move to
accept.
approve the agenda is presented.
I'll second. Motion made and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public input.
Well, Mike, I don't know how you want to handle this, but if we want people to come up and voice their opinions on things that are on the agenda. And Mike, it's up to you whether you want to have Gordy specifically talk about his request on item number 4. Or if you want to have people come up and talk during the discussion of that agenda item, that's totally up to you, but we can do either or. We're set up either way. But if anybody for the public does talk, we want you to come up front so we get you on the microphone, because the microphones can't pick you up back there very well. So
Which one?
grab a seat. Yep. Mike, do you want people to talk about ahead of time, or you want them to talk about at the agenda item?
Why don't we wait till we get down? If you're gonna talk sidewalks, roads and stuff, why don't we wait until we get there? Nope. I'm here for wastewater.
This would be a different topic. So yep, this would be good for that.
We talk about that now?
Yep.
Yes?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Wastewater treatment plant. You've spent.
And your name, please? I'm sorry.
Pardon?
Your name for the record?
Steven Sternberg.
Yep.
You've spent millions of dollars on the wastewater treatment plant this year alone. And the smell from the septic trucks stinks. And I've been complaining about this 3-4 years through emails. I just get it and run around. So then I come across the paperwork saying that there's a problem with the wastewater linked to the septic trucks. That's a problem. Okay, and then you create what's the word, addendum or saying that there is a stink zone that the people cannot complain about it. So you cover up, you have a problem and then you created another ordinance to cover up the problem. So the stink zone is basically across the river. And I don't know how many properties involved, maybe a dozen properties. So you're saying they can't complain about this because you created an ordinance against it. You know, where there was no public input on this, there was no meetings, no people weren't notified about it or anything. So how can you do that? Answers?
I would have to look back and see when that ordinance was created. That's been some time. It hasn't been recently, so I would have to go back.
I've got the map at home and they're circled.
Yep.
The residences that cannot complain about it.
Mhm.
And the residences that have been there long before your ordinance overrode the stink.
Like I said, I have to go back and see when that ordinance was created. That was before my time here, so I couldn't tell you when that was enacted.
Yeah,
at that point in
But,
time.
you know, how can you do that?
We'd have to definitely go back and look at what was done and what was.
And you
not
cannot
done.
literally sit outside if you got the wind in certain directions. I mean, or you can't even have the windows open. So either you fix the problem or you cut the taxes in half.
What would cut taxes in half have to fix the problem?
What's that?
What would cutting taxes in half do with fixing the problem?
Oh, then can't complain about it then.
Why?
I got lower taxes. I can put up with the stink.
You got the lowest taxes in Wapaka County right now.
Pardon?
You have the lowest taxes in Wapaka County currently.
Oh, boy. Yeah, well, there's a debate right there. You can go to the Allegheny County and the taxes are lower,
Wapaka County is.
right? Half of it.
You know, when you live in an area, you're gonna get a smell once in a while.
It's
It's
created
just
by the
like-
septic trucks.
Correct. It's just like living in the country and when
No,
they're
no, no, no.
fertilizing the fields or
The
when.
problem was created and covered up.
You know, the wind is blowing right. I remember living out north of town and it it would wake me up in the middle of the night.
What was it, a farmland?
No, it was the Bear Creek sauerkraut factory.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean,
Did they create an ordinance to cover it up?
no,
Geez, they're slipping.
but it's just kind of, you live out in the country, you're gonna get some different smells.
We're not in the country.
Sir, what we can do is we can definitely take this back for further discussion once we figure out more information about the ordinance that you're proposing.
Well, aren't we looking into fixing the dumping area for the septic trucks, which would take care of the odor? Isn't that something we're looking into?
So if you guys recall, we created the high-strength receiving waste station. And I wish Ben was here, but he came in and he had an alarm that he had to run out to. But the high-strength waste receiving station was created for dumping high-strength waste. So it's something that's the really potent stuff that creates a lot of methane gas. And that methane is directly dumped into the digesters, and we collect that methane and burn that off on our methane boilers. The septic, like out in the country, you used to have somebody pump their septic tank. That has very low value for the high strength. It's a low strength, but it can be very potent in the smell aspect of it. So we can't directly dump that into the digesters because there's no value. It actually decreases the amount of potency in the high strength that we have in there. So we continue to have the regular septic haulers dump where they have been right next to the plant. So to create a facility to basically contain that, it would be another building. And then you have to, in that building, have that screening system in there because you need to screen the waste before it goes into the plant. So you don't have items that you don't want going into our pumps. So to do that, that's what whatever the price tag was, $1 million plus for that facility. So either and I believe Ben, emailed you that information.
Right, I got
regarding
that.
We bring in, I can't remember what they cost, $100 and some thousand in revenue for that. If we stop collecting that, then we would have to change the user fees and basically increase the user fees to make up for that revenue. So that's going to be a big question for the board. I mean, do you guys want to, increase your user fees?
So how much in improvements would cost versus eliminating the waste trucks?
Oh, that
One,
that building would be,
why not have the waste trucks dump in the back where your farm trucks haul your waste in the spring? Is there a way you can do that?
I believe that the location where they're dumping right now, that's the ideal location because there's a screen in there that they have to clean off that catches the sediments. Whereas in the back, we know where that stuff's coming from. It's not a toilet situation where a kid flushed something down the toilet and we don't know what's in that septic tank. Whereas the other stuff is coming from a hauler, which I
Right.
believe is screened ahead of time coming in. So it's a little bit different situation. Wouldn't be easier just to throw it back there. But
You
you're still
wouldn't be
gonna have
able to do
that, you're still gonna have that same potency when you dump in that area.
Would it be further away from residential except for the ones crossing the tennis courts?
We would have to do a study to figure out what we could do back there and if that would be, justified for the cost.
Does the
add a couple
Waters
hundred
ever
feet.
complain about the stink?
What's that?
Waters Supper Club, have they ever complained about the stink?
Not to me.
I'll check that out. Okay, that's about it. Thank you.
Sir,
Anything else coming from the floor? All right, we'll proceed. Ben is not here. Request for a loading zone on North Water Street, Gordy.
I think you guys know everything I brought to you ahead of time. I was looking at front of my store and I think we could bring it in with taking some of the yellow line out and using one parking spot to create a loading zone in there. And, you know, to me, my business or the business Matt's in the building, what's in this building has got the best criteria to need a loading zone I've ever heard of. I mean, it is a necessary thing. So I guess I wonder why I wouldn't get one. Would be my question.
My concern, I could see what you're saying. My concern would be whether we would have to create a loading zone for how many businesses downtown.
You know, I hear this all the time and I think if somebody comes up with a good reason and needs one, they should get one. Now, just because I want one, that doesn't give you one. But if you can come up with a darn good reason, a safety factor, everything that I have in front of me, that this building needs to survive as as a place downtown, it needs a loading zone. So I guess I don't understand what would keep it from getting one. I mean, there isn't another business downtown that has a 12-foot roll of carpet that comes in and out of it. The weight of stuff, I brought a carpet tube over here I could bring out for you and show you what that big long tube is trying to get in your vehicle, whatnot. You just need this in that respect. I look at New London, I think New London's going to grow. As soon as 15 gets done, New London should grow back. So that's just going to get worse in time. Then it's going to be more necessary. So I guess what my really question is why wouldn't I get one there?
So Gordy, I don't disagree with the safety aspects and stuff like that. I've come down there, I've taken pictures, I've looked, I've toured around. I've seen the loading, the unloading myself. The one question I do have right now is parking. Okay, that's our number one agenda. When we get down further, that's an issue.
Parking's always been an issue.
Now we're looking at taking away, and like you said, so the next person can come up here and legitimately ask for a loading zone as well. So now we're down all the businesses, half, 3/4. What do you project for parking? How should we address that issue? What do you have to say for that?
How do I address parking? London needs to get a parking lot somewhere in downtown. There's a great opportunity that's here right now. There's a spot. It could be set up for a lot of parking. But that's something I guess I lived with most of my life was parking. I got bar on one side and hairdressers on the other, and both of those create a lot of parking spaces. It's just part of life. So I guess my loading zone would be a part of life.
This loading zone be all day or time wise?
I would say to me, well, the loading zone, when you're in business like this, especially like in the wintertime, okay, you can't put everything in your truck and carpet freezes. If it freezes, your installation's garbage. It ain't gonna work because the carpet gets too stiff. It won't stretch out decent. So especially through the winter time, you go back to your store to pick up the next job. Or you change materials. So you go and you go to load up and you got, now I get rid of my carpet tools. I go to ceramic tools or laminate tools. You can't keep it all in one truck. It's impossible. You'd have a huge truck. So you need that spot there through the day. Now, from 8 to 5 would be a good time. Then in the evening, they can be just used wherever it needs to be used. I'm sure Matt's not gonna, or who's ever in that position is not going to load their truck in the middle of the night. Well, hope not.
You put the limit on the parking, say your loading zone. If you put a time on, I know in Appleton, in the back alleys, they gotta have everything done by 10 o'clock. You can't be in them alleys after 10 o'clock.
at night.
No, in the morning. On the north side of College Avenue, that alleyway that runs back there.
Okay.
They gotta be unloaded by 10 o'clock. If they park back to the loaders, for whoever's blocking the traffic gets the ticket.
Okay.
So how are you
What type
gonna,
of businesses are there? What are we talking?
oh, there's all kinds of businesses along College Avenue.
Yeah, well, all right.
There's some restaurants there, I know that. I don't know what all the businesses are along
Most of
there.
those would get their food early in the morning and whatnot for the
There's
day's
some
use.
taverns, there's a couple taverns along there. I don't know what all unloads there.
Right.
I don't know what's all in that stretch. I just know that that's an ordinance in Appleton.
Right.
How are you gonna say you need carpet at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? And the loading zone, your loading zone that you're gonna create down there is only from, say, 7 in the morning till 9 in the morning.
I don't want it from 7. I want it from
You want it all
Eight-
day.
eight
You
in the
want it from the
morning
morning
till
until at night.
through working hours, right?
I don't know. I can't see how you're gonna, then everybody on the street's gonna want a loading. Next tavern is gonna want a
Right
loading.
away,
zone.
you want to bring everybody into it. They
Well-
don't have this same problem. They don't, does anybody got 12-foot things coming in and out of their building? I can take a case of beer and go through in any building there is. You take a 12-foot roll of carpet, it's a totally different game.
I've seen them, I've seen you unload down there already.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know. I don't know how you could put a loading zone in that area. I don't know.
I don't see why it can't get a loading zone. It's a safety factor. I mean, if Matt's got to go across the street with a roll of carpet and stop
How many
traffic,
parking stalls are you talking about? Five?
I'm talking 1.5. No, most loading zones are 2 parking spots. I'm talking 1.5, just enough to get his truck in there and be able to angle off the sidewalk with the 12-foot roll of carpet into his truck.
So in the end, we're talking 2 parking spots.
Well, see, I don't think it takes 2 parking spots. because
Well, you
you've got-
can't park a half a car.
You've got a lot of yellow line from the end of, where the alley comes out to the first parking spot. Now you go up on Pearl Street, you've got a little parking lot there that's got yellow lines that are 3 feet on each side. Well, you bring this down to 3 feet, that gives you your 10 feet to go with that 1 parking spot.
So we got to remap the whole area.
Well, you'd have to remap that front of that 1 block, yes. Move the 3. Wait, well, actually, all you'd have to do is remap from the store back, move 3 parking places back. The 4th one, it becomes the parking thing and the extra space behind it that you take that yellow, take the yellow off the yellow. It would be moving 3 parking stalls. It would be a very simple thing to do. I'd like to actually, I think it's very well needed. I think
Who do you propose covers the costs for the labor of doing this?
the city,
Taxpayers?
yes. I mean, it's part of the city. It's, it just to work with the people are downtown. I mean, downtown people put up with a lot. Owners of downtown put up with a lot of things that happen through life. And that's just how it's been all the time. I mean, we put up with beer bottles. We put up with people coming out of the bar next to us, puking, peeing on the carpet. There's a lot you put up with. Do I think the city should help the people trying to keep things nice and neat? Yes, I do.
I agree. That I agree.
So I don't understand why this is even being questioned so much. I guess it's an easy task. Looked into it and I think it works out real great to do. I don't know why everybody thinks everybody wants one. If they had that same position or that same criteria that I have, then they should be able to get one.
And I can guarantee that everybody has issues with their loading and unloading.
Well, they have
zone.
issues, but they don't have the issues that this one is. This creates a long space to get out, across the street with. I crossed the street with a 2-wheel cart and that wouldn't bother me too much.
But viably, theirs is just as important as yours. is
Well,
what
yes,
I'm-
it
what I'm
is. I
getting
agree
to.
with it. Right. It's just as important, but a lot easier for them to maintain, to handle. It doesn't have the near safety factor. If I'm on the end of the roll, when you take these carts and you push down on the end of this roll, that one's 12 feet out where I can't even see what's happening out there between cars. It's definitely a safety factor.
My only question right now would be
I'm going.
the cost that the taxpayers would have to invest in this before we go ahead and redo Main Street as it is. So what extra
What would
cost?
the cost of moving 2 stalls and putting a little white paint out there?
I don't know. That's why I said I'd have to find that out.
Okay. I would be interested in it.
Do you know of any, did you know of any other towns that have an instance like this? On their main street, where they have a loading and unloading zone?
Have I been in?
I said-
I grew up in Milwaukee. There was all kinds of loading zones.
Well, Milwaukee, yeah. I'm talking, but say a town the size in London, Wapaka.
You know, I haven't gone from town to town. I don't see what that would make a difference in the theory here. The theory
Well, I'm
is.
just seeing how they handle that issue,
Okay,
how they handle that issue. If some other town had that, what did they do?
what did they do? I suppose I could look
I'd
into
like
it.
to see that, how they handle that issue.
I could look into it. I don't think it mattered because what the issue is what it is here. It's a safety factor and it's a very small, minor thing to be able to have in front of your store. I mean, my store handles 3 parking stalls. I pay a lot of taxes on that big area.
I think a lot of businesses are able to do their loading and unloading in the back alley.
Which is unfeasible for ours because it's too high.
It's too, we're at the
20
narrowest
inches off
part.
the ground.
Hmm?
That loading dock behind your store is 20 inches off the ground. Why is that too high? Because when it used to be a sporting shop, they used to take boats and everything else in that back door, off the alley.
They used to do a lot of things years ago. But they didn't bring that stuff in every day, in and out every day, 2 or 3 times a day.
I don't disagree with you, Gordy. I do see your issue and I do see your problems. I see your vision. But we have to answer to all the people of the city of New London. It's their tax dollars spending this, and that's the questions, they're hard questions to ask. We have to look into the future and see what the other businesses are asked will be. You know, I agree with you. You have a viable situation. That's a 12-foot roll of carpet. What's the estimated weight on that?
Depends on, each job changes.
Hmm.
I mean, it changes by the minute.
Well, you get a full roll in on a
Oh, yeah,
delivery.
Those go close to 500 pounds, don't they?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
Oh, probably more than that.
Probably
What's
more than
your,
that.
what's your current situation of unloading now?
Well, right now, we put a little ramp out there on the curb. And the semis come, but those are, that is not a daily thing. Where Matt comes and he can't get to his store even to reload another second job or it goes across the street, or it's usually, the truckers are pretty good. When you bring in a truck, they're usually early in the morning when the traffic's down. In fact, this morning I was down there and one of the guys that's been doing it probably for 30 years already or better, that I know quite well, was unloading his truck. He was able to pull right by the curb. He likes to get here early so he don't have to block the street. But we still got to bring that thing out on the curb, try to jump the curb with these big 500-pound rolls or better. It's quite a task.
Chad, do you know how long a typical parking stall is?
21 feet.
They vary, but I'd have to go measure what those are. And I don't think anybody's arguing, the difficulty and the potential safety and stuff like that. The challenge is doing warehousing operations in a downtown district like that. That's the challenge by far. I mean, you don't have a loading zone, you don't have so you're trying to do like a warehousing, operations
It's a
out of the
carpet
front of the
store.
building. I totally agree. But like what the board was talking about, if you do it for one, we're gonna have people wanting to say, if you do it for him, you gotta do it for me
Well,
too.
I understand that. They're all going to want it, but do they have the criteria to
And it's a
warrant it?
public parking spot. When you make it private on a public road,
It's not private.
it would be private.
No.
It would be your private loading zone or.
It
Yeah.
could be, it
operating.
could be used to anybody that wants to bring him paper at his thing, he gets to use it. But that means it's only going to be there for a short period of time. That vehicle's there for 15, half hour at the most, unloading.
And that's a different point. I mean, because I think everybody's thinking it was just gonna be for your business.
No,
period.
they could, the beer trucks will get used to that. They'll be using it left and right. Why wouldn't they use it? But like I say, most of the time, okay, say a beer truck's in there unloading or the paper thing unloading. Matt comes in, he knows that truck's gonna be gone within a few minutes. You don't have to, truck that across the street or whatever, it's not just for Matt or for the store. It's a public loading zone.
I guess as a recommendation, I know you want to answer right now, but I think that something affects the entire downtown district.
Oh, yeah, I
So
agree.
I
No,
think
I don't
if
need an
you
answer.
guys are
right
gonna
now.
be talking about this and considering this, I'd say you have to, get some information, how this is gonna affect anybody else, so that we have another side of the story. If this is something that you guys are gonna entertain.
All right, I'll gladly wait. I hope I do hear from you. I'm going to check out other towns. I'm gonna kind of keep pushing on this because I do believe it warrants. Voting on there.
And we can ask the board right now, is there any marching orders? Is there a direction? Do you guys willing to look into this, or is it something that, if the entire board is not
Hey,
interested
Chad.
in this, then let's not waste our time. So I think Dave's
Dave
talking on
Larson.
here right now.
Good.
No, I think
Dave,
Dave.
Would it
was-
make,
Go ahead,
would
Dave.
it make sense to look into this as we redo Main Street and maybe putting a two spot loading zone at halfway through the blocks?
That's exactly what I was just gonna discuss.
Because if we have a loading zone on every block, just take up 2 parking spaces, make that a loading zone, then all the businesses will be able to use it for that block.
Gordy, is that something that would be feasible for your business?
Well, I'm open to anything. I'd like to look at what you propose, just. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor. There's a spot open by Tim's shop, right?
I was just gonna ask, what
There's
is that? a
painted
loading
yellow
zone?
there. Hang on. And then you've got the side street going in by Salon. So if somebody needed to get by, there's room to go around and even cut into that side street for a car to get by a loading truck. So from where Tim's shop is, how many parking spots is that to where your shop is?
I don't know.
Right here.
Well, you got the bar and then you got the salon.
Fred, I got it up in the map.
Up.
So I mean, Gordy's business is 310 right here.
Yeah,
Are you talking about right here down the,
Yeah.
down the corner?
Yeah.
That's a good, almost a block. I mean, city blocks right here.
yeah, I think it's feasible to put room in there. And the other places, all the rest on water. The only place else I ever see trucks unloading is at the Mexican restaurant. And those guys never seem to have a problem.
We have Jolly Rogers as well.
Mhm.
They park right in the middle of the road there.
Okay. Doesn't seem to be a problem.
So you're saying Matt should just park in the middle of the road and load?
That's not what I said.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to figure out.
We're talking about businesses down the street.
My point was, it just seems like there's room there from the side street towards your shop.
I know Jolly Rogers is brought up loading and unloading as well. So I mean, that's a prime example of future wants or needs. I like the discussion, man. I learned a lot as far as, I mean, trying to help you and your
Right.
concerns, and
Let's come with some options. You're gonna solve it tonight, right?
Yeah. it's up to the chair what you want to do.
I think we brought up some pretty good ideas. I think it's gonna take a little bit of time. I'm wondering, like you say, is there any possibility of putting it someplace that we would not be taking up more than just say 1 parking spot and a yellow line?
One parking spot usually, like for the carpet truck, 1 spot is not big enough because you're dealing with this.
No, I'm saying 1 parking spot in the yellow,
Oh,
a spot that's already no parking, you might say. If we would put that loading zone at a stall right there, that would give you.
The extra room.
Extra room, yeah, okay.
This is definitely a great discussion for the next couple line items for the future development of the downtown. I mean, not only addressing the concern right now, but future development of the downtown revitalization.
Can we do some stuff on it and bring it up to the next month?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's
The chairman.
Winter's coming and I'd like to actually see something done somewhere before the snow flies, because that's the real hard time of the year.
I guess the only thing I have to bring is enforcement. How would you enforce it? We have a 2-hour parking downtown as it is that nobody abides by. So you can put in a loading zone all you want, but
Yeah,
People
it
are
would
gonna
have to
park
be
there anyway.
enforced. I mean, if that truck's there. I don't know how they do loading zones, if it's a time limit or not, whatnot. Usually it's 15 minutes.
when I first heard of this, I thought it was a little ridiculous to have a public space be used for a private business. But if you could look into other communities that have done something like this, I think that would be really helpful.
I thought maybe there was things on the book somewhere that tells you what criteria a loading zone all has and what. and-
There might be something on loading zones. I don't know either.
And what I'll do is Mike Simon heads up. Mike's one of our engineers from McMahon. So I'll talk to Mike too on the side. He's on right now. He's listened to the entire conversation and he's helping us design the downtown district. So not to belabor the topic right now, but Mike and I can talk to see maybe he knows of something that's been done, these type of scenarios.
So we're putting it on for next month.
That's
Up to the chairman.
We can talk about it again.
Okay,
You know, and we'll have to decide, talk about if we want, how we want to collect the input from the rest, because this obviously is something that affects the entire downtown district. So depending on how we want to proceed with that topic in particular, we can talk about that.
all right, thank you.
Thank you for your input.
Okay, the next thing I see is discuss and select street sidewalk typical widths for downtown reconstruction. Anybody wants to talk, we're gonna say, please don't come up here and repeat what the person in front of you has said. You know, we're gonna be a little bit time wise. We want to hear your comments, but we don't want to drag this into 2-hour conversation.
And I think everyone here kind of knows a lot of the conversations, so I think, you know, I don't have to belabor and kind of go through the whole thing again, but we're talking about the downtown district. And what we need to do is come up with our option for what engineering dubs as typical widths. So we need to give Mike, our engineer at McMahon, some marching orders so that they can actually start the design for the downtown district. We've held public meetings. Everybody kind of knows that. We've collected public input. The consensus from those meetings and from the dot voting was to narrow the roadways, to increase the sidewalks for some downtown more pedestrian combinations on the sidewalk. The most votes we did get was for the narrowest roadway, you know, which would be 38 feet, you know, which would be a 12-foot travel lane and 7-foot parking lane. Doesn't mean we have to go with exactly that. I sent out a bunch of information and asked the group to kind of go around to different locations and kind of get a good feeling. Warner Allen was a great scenario where we have about a 12-foot travel lane and about 8.5-foot parking lane there. But I guess at this point in time, we want to collect some more input from the public for the ones that obviously have invested interest, because you come to the meeting, which is good, to kind of give the Board of Public Works some more input of what width we're gonna kind of run with. So with that, come on down.
Good afternoon.
State your name for the record, please.
My name is Shirley Sternberg, and I do own a building on West North Water Street. Since the last Public Works meeting, I have received some information from Mr. Horace. And looking through it, his proposed configuration, which is the 38-foot curb to curb, travel lane 12-foot and parking lane 7-foot. I think 7-foot is too small for the parking lane. My SUV is 7-foot. My husband's truck is 9.5. So I'm just going with the 7-foot, my SUV. Now, if you all received this little packet that I got from Chad, what I was looking at was either the 40 or 41 foot. If we took, instead of, okay, the 40 foot, we have 13-foot travel lane, 7-foot parking lane. I'm okay with the 12-foot travel lane. Take that foot and put it on the parking lane. You'd have 12-foot and 8-foot, much better. Or even the 41-foot. Take that foot off, put it in the parking lane, you'd have a 12-foot travel lane and an 8.5 parking lane. Either one of those two would work much better than a 7-foot. My 7-foot SUV is not uncommon. And if I park in that space, not right up to the curb, you're gonna park like 6 inches away from the curb, I'm already in the travel lane. If I put my tires right up next to the curb, I'm opening my door into the travel lane. We need a little bit of a buffer there. Okay. Monday September 27th at 3 p.m. I counted 16 trucks on North Water Street. These are our customers. We can't alienate our customers. And I wasn't counting vans. Vans are bigger than my SUV also. In the winter, when we shovel snow off the sidewalk, it goes into the parking lane. Sometimes we don't know when it's going to start snowing, stop snowing. The city, I'm not saying anything bad about the city removal, but it does not always get picked up. So you're parking away from the snow. So you're way into the travel lane at that point. And that's just what happens with the snow. So I'm just asking, I'm going with the 12-foot travel lane. I have no problem with that. But I think we need to go with either the 40 curb to curb, which would be an 8-foot parking, or the 41 curb to curb would be an 8.5-foot parking. So those are my suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I am Tabitha Meyer, and I am the owner at River Edge Salon, which is next to Gordy's business downtown. Kind of the same thing as Shirley there. We're looking at clientele. We do have a lot of older clientele. Some of them are handicapped, some do come in walkers and stuff like that. I think the 7-foot is going to be too small to accommodate for them, especially when we have the carpet store with their deliveries or their stuff coming in and out. You have 2 bars down there. They have their delivery trucks. So everybody trying to get in and out does seem to become a problem. I'm happy with the 12-foot that would be fine as well. But I think 8 to 8.5 parking is going to be what we're going to need for down there for our clientele and the demographic, what we have right now. So that is, I guess, my main input at this time. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Heidemann with Familiar Grounds. My opinion actually is different than the last two. I sit on the downtown committee for this project. And I do understand the problems that the 2 previous business owners do have. We talked about these at our meeting in great depth. We already know that even with the current road situation, even if we add a foot into that parking spot, we're already in a place where you're watching when you open your car door. There's not enough room there right now anyways, where you're going to swing your car door open without paying attention to traffic coming. We're already in a situation where if trucks are unloading, you have to be more aware of where you're going. Narrowing that isn't going to make these problems worse. They're already problems that we have. They're problems that may need to be addressed in other areas, but they're making the road narrower isn't going to increase these problems. We talked about that in great depth at our meeting. Our goal as a downtown committee is to make downtown a destination. We want people to come down there. We want people to stop and stay. We don't want it to be a drive-through. We don't want people running through downtown at 30 miles per hour. We want them to slow down and be aware of their surroundings because they might notice a new business while they're down there. They might get out of their vehicle and maybe they might have to walk a little bit further, but they might notice, again, a new business in that little bit of a walk. We want to create New London as a destination for people that are looking to just go through town with wider vehicles or have a larger vehicle that need parking. We are looking into alternative parking areas outside of downtown. So then you can park more comfortably, locations off of downtown on the street. New London needs change. Business owners have been begging for change. If we don't do this right, we don't do this remodel of our downtown to the fullest that we can, why are we going to do it? Let's not just replace carpeting and paint walls. Let's remodel the whole thing. Let's commit. Let's make this what New London can be, because that is what we need if New London is going to grow. I've addressed this committee in the past with ATV and UTVs. Again, businesses begging for change and growth and bringing new life to this town. We want to create the downtown to be magical, a place where people want to go, where we can decorate it for Christmas, where you walk down there and you're going shopping with your kids and there's lights and there's places to sit. And during the summer, there's trees and it's well landscaped and it's somewhere you want to go. It's somewhere you're proud to tell your family that you live there and you want them to come visit you and you want to go show them all the cute shops that there is downtown. We need that change in New London. If that means that we need to adjust to some of those changes and we need to create solutions to them, that is what we need to do as a city. The city needs to start looking at New London as a business. We need to make money. And if your businesses don't make money, your businesses are going to leave. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
You may.
What would you actually be looking for as far as parking width and sidewalk width?
The suggested that we sent to the 12-foot travel lane and the 7-foot parking lane. That is what we as a committee suggested to the board. And like I said, the concerns that people have are concerns we talked about at our meeting. We didn't just willy-nilly say, hey, let's do this. We talked about the concerns. We talked about loading concerns of the carpet. We did talk about having some loading zones to make that easier. These are conversations that we're having. I would like to think that the board can maybe look at the people that consist on this consist on the committee. We have the city administrator, we have Parks and Rec that are saying, you know what, yep, we might need to retrain our plow drivers on a few things, but we're willing to make the changes. We have business owners, we have art people, we have a good variety of people that are willing to give input and we're willing to challenge each other. We're willing to look at the problems. We're not just saying, hey, let's redo this and not consider any of the problems that are going to be in place. We've considered that. The parking lane being narrower isn't going to change the fact that you already are looking before you open your door on that street. No, whether it's a narrower parking lane or a wider parking lane, that's how it is. And we want people to slow down. Having Chad sent that email to you, Oshkosh, downtown Oshkosh has this same exact setup and they see twice as much traffic as we do on a daily basis. Pretty sure if downtown Oshkosh can make this work, New London can make this work. It just means that we need to be open to new ordinances, new setups, and look at change, which I know is difficult for New London, but we need to look at change.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm April Kapitsky, the Executive Director at the New London Area Chamber of Commerce. I am also in favor of wider sidewalks because I think they're going to bring change. I think we have this wonderful opportunity that we need to take advantage of. And if we don't know when it's going to come back around again. I think Chad has done a wonderful job getting community input. He may not have the entire population weighing in, but I think you can see the majority vote where it stands. I don't think people are busting down our door right now to start businesses, and I think this is going to bring the change that we need.
Thank you, April.
Lynn Tank. I have an agency business right downtown on North Water Street. I'm also on the committee that's been discussing all of these proposed changes. I understand the concerns regarding the narrower parking lane. I also understand the concerns regarding older clientele. Most of my business is people that need probably a little bit more assistance getting in and out of a vehicle, which is why I'm hoping like crazy you can turn the lot next to mine into a parking lot. And I'm hoping that maybe that will solve some of these other concerns that people have regarding potentially narrowing the parking lane. But I, as a business downtown, would really like people to be able to drive a little bit slower through downtown. And if that's what happens after we narrow these lanes, that would be awesome. You would think my building would be pretty easy to find, and I can't tell you how many times I get calls from people who can't find my building when there's nothing next to it. So if they would slow down a little bit to look around, and that's kind of what we want. People don't even realize there's a clothing store across the street from mine because they don't slow down to look when they drive by. The other thing that we've really wanted was wider sidewalks. You probably can't see this picture very well, but this is my building. Meeting Shoes is my building from the 50s and 60s when we had wide sidewalks and people did things on the sidewalks. And that's what some of us would like to be able to do again. If it's having sales on the sidewalks or outdoor dining at some of these restaurants or any of those types of things, that's some of the other things we're concerned about. Public Works might also like wider sidewalks when it comes to doing the snow removal in the winter time, where they're going to, even if it's only 6 inches wider or whatever it is, it's going to be a little bit easier for them to maneuver to go through there and clear those sidewalks. So I agree with Jen. These are all things that, believe me, we talked about and sometimes felt like we beat to death, but we did think about all this stuff before we made the recommendations. It wasn't just, hey, this one looks good and we picked it. We really did think about it and think this over before we made any of these recommendations. The building to the left is no longer there. My building is
I
Meeting
know that, but
Shoes.
I don't think the curb hasn't changed. Though, since then.
I have no idea.
No.
But
change at all, but
this is something that, it doesn't feel that wide, I'll tell you that. It's just an example of what we'd like people to do.
I think the curbs changed since then. I mean, you look at the photos from the museum, the way cars have parked and all that. Over the years, I definitely think that.
Do you have anything to say about
Wider sidewalks, which make things safer, more efficient as far as snow removal. Because our equipment's a little tight on the sidewalks, right?
We have a few pinch points downtown. There are some trees, there are some light poles, there are some narrower sidewalks that we struggle with. You have wider equipment, it's not because we want the biggest, the best. It's that we want to try and be as efficient as possible and of course as safe as possible.
Bob? I did a little measuring, went on Werner Allen, and I think Werner Allen's a really good example of kind of what we want. And Werner Allen is 22 feet wide. I'm looking at one lane. And the parking width is 8 feet. The driving width is 12 feet. I got a truck, which is a little larger vehicle. I want to order purposely parked on the parking area, waited till the school was, traffic was going by. I got out of my truck and stood along the side of it. I didn't get run over. But I think a minimum of 8-foot parking you need. Because if you go downtown, not everybody's gonna have a car. There's gonna be guys coming downtown after fishing tournaments with a boat, and they're gonna drive down and park on the main street. People aren't gonna go, I don't care where we create a parking lot, they're not gonna drive 2 blocks to park and then walk back. You know yourself, people park the closest they can to where they wanna go. And I measured our main street downtown right now, and the parking width was 8, the driving width is 13. We don't need a 13-foot driving width. 12 is plenty. So there's a foot you picked up right there for your sidewalk. And I measured Division Street, which everybody thinks is real wide, brand new street. The parking on Division Street is 6 feet 2 inches. Driving lane of 11 feet, road width of 36. If you park 2 cars on each side of Division Street, you will not drive down the center. Somebody's gonna have to park and let the other person go by. So a 6.5 foot park or 7-foot parking is narrow. I think we almost need a minimum of 8 feet. That would give you your 40-foot. It still picks up a foot for your parking, for your sidewalk. You want a wider sidewalk, you're gonna get it. But I think the driving lane, 12 feet is fine. Parking width of 8 feet, I think are 2 minimums that you have to have. That's my opinion. I went out and measured the streets, and if anybody wants to go on Warner Allen, it's a great example of how wide you think a street should be for our main street. And I think that's a great example of it. So if you go over there and park alongside of the road, let the cars drive by you, get out and stand. You can't swing your door open, granted, you can't do that anywhere because you're gonna lose your door. I mean, you can get out and stand alongside of the car. I did that. I stood alongside of my truck and cars were driving by and I didn't feel threatened by getting run over by a car. So that's my opinion.
You said 8 feet.
8-foot parking with a 12-foot driving lane. That's one of the proposals, I think that you had on one of your graphs, or 7.5 feet, I think you had.
Well, 12 foot, if you would do a 12-foot travel and an 8-foot parking lane, that would put you at this 40-foot width.
Yeah.
20 on each side.
Right. And that was one of your close to one of the proposals, wasn't it? You had?
That's one of the 5 that are over there.
Yeah, right. Yep, that's what I thought.
That's giving you what, 9.5 feet of sidewalk?
A 40-foot width roadway would give you 9.5 sidewalk, yes.
Chairman.
What do they consider it right now, the sidewalk right now? 7?
Let's see,
7.5 right now.
varies. And
7.5?
Mike, from McMahon, please pipe in whenever you feel, but it varies. I mean, the survey went out and it was anywhere from 6 to 8, depending on,
Depends on the way the buildings are.
yeah, where everything sets. But one of the things that want to do with engineering is that the roadway is not centered right now. So one thing we want to do is center the road and get it, have an equal distance on both sides. But yeah, so that would be going from around 7 to around 9.5 if you did the 40-foot width.
Chairman.
Yep.
Are you looking for a motion out of the side tonight on the width and
We would like to have a marching order so we can give Mike from
I want to
McMahon.
make a motion following Bob's suggestion of 8 feet parking and what was the
12-foot driving.
12-foot driveway? That's my motion.
Can you bring up the 38-foot, please, Chad? That's what the committee suggested or proposed.
What if we did 7.5 foot parking lane? and
Can't,
take-
we got a motion on the floor. You can't do that.
You haven't got a second, so we can have a discussion.
There's this.
And even after a second, you can have discussion.
Okay. You made the motion, Bob?
I can't make a motion.
Bob didn't make this
I
motion.
can't make a motion. I'm on the committee, but I can't make a
I'll make the
motion.
motion then. All right? We need a second.
Okay, Bernie seconds that.
Now we can discuss, so
Now we can talk.
anybody that wants to talk, please discuss.
So we're talking a foot difference at the proposed motion compared to the suggested from the committee.
Take both sides and we suggested 38, what they're proposing is 40.
Correct.
There's the downtown is not dead. There's all the businesses are full. Everyone wants to change the downtown, and I get that they want to have a Door County, Wapaka or whatever, but we're not, the businesses downtown are doing just fine. It's never going to be a destination. I think that's kind of a pipe dream. It's we live in a faster paced society now. Everyone's on TikTok and whatever. They're not going downtown to hang out, you know.
That's the problem right there. Won't never change if we keep thinking that way.
Well, I feel like there's some people in town that want to change New London. We're forgetting about the people that actually live here.
People that live here live in poverty and they're not spending their money at businesses because we keep on focusing on low income housing.
I think one way it will go that way.
If you don't bring new money into New London, businesses like restaurants and bars and coffee shops will not survive.
How much more discussion do you want?
Yeah,
I would just invite, as our engineer, Mike, any opinions on the 40-foot travel lane? Obviously, that narrows the sidewalk. I sent everyone information that the ideal width for a sidewalk is the 10-foot width, but obviously this is close to that. But Mike, any input, not to put you on the spot, any input on going with a 12-foot travel lane and an 8-foot parking lane?
Well, I was just going to mention to you that 10-foot was kind of the minimum recommended by DOT for best practices. That's with the 6-foot sidewalk and a 4-foot green space terrace area in a downtown area, central business district. That's the guidelines that they've come up with over, years and years of studies. The 39-foot face-to-face would give you that. And that's also what the city of Oshkosh has in their main street. They have the 8-foot parking lanes and 11-foot travel lanes. So it's kind of, and they've reported they don't have any issues with that based on your email from the police chief. So those are the things that the committee was trying to follow all the way through this. Personally, I think 10 feet is the minimum you need to do some of the things that were brought up at the public information meeting. People are looking for possible outside seating at restaurants, various other amenities that were discussed. Personally, I think the 10-foot is the minimum for sidewalk width. You shouldn't say sidewalk, but the distance you need, the 6-foot sidewalk and the 4-foot terrace, it would all be concrete except for areas where you have trees is the way we've been looking at it. So I think that 39 is kind of a compromise between the 40 that's being discussed here and the 38 that was received the most votes, if you will, during the public information meetings. So that's kind of a different way of looking at it. The 11-foot and 8-foot in Oshkosh, I guess, again, it sounds like that's not a problem right now.
And I want to make that crystal clear that, when Mike's talking about the sidewalk width, we're talking about the public side. We're not supposed to really consider the private side. There is a little bit of a buffer here, to the building. So, I mean, you do have a little bit extra here, but Mike, when they talk about that, they're just talking about the public side, because that's the only thing we can, have jurisdiction over, correct?
Correct. And something to remember too on this street, 60-foot right of way is what you have on Water Street and Pearl Street. It's actually a foot narrower. So you need to, a lot of these guidelines are based on 60-foot of right, 66 feet of right as well. So you're already down 3 feet aside with the right of way you have now. And if we look at Oshkosh, what they've gone to the 38, even with their 66-foot width. So they have much more room to put things, develop things in that public area behind the curb as well. And you guys are already looking 3 feet less than the city of Oshkosh has on their Main Street project.
And that's the constrictions we got. They got a 66-foot right away. We got 60. It's just what we're dealing with.
I'd just like to remind everybody that we represent all the people of New London. We've done our due diligence. We've listened, we've heard, we've had voting boards.
Mr. Chairman, I move to end debate and vote on the issue.
What voting is, we will just take this to council, correct? Does council have to approve this?
This is just a recommendation for engineering to continue the process. So I wouldn't think you would have to. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't, but it's not like technically a budgetary. This is just continuing the overall downtown process. So you wouldn't have to, but you could if you wanted to.
All right, we'll call for a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
I,
Hold on, we got people online too, so
Opposed.
Steve Grote, are you for or against the vote?
Against.
Can't. So Mayor against, Billy against, Dave against, and Steve against. And then Bernie was for, right?
You're for the vote?
And then Tim was for, right? Mike was for. Fred was for, and Bob Esau was for. So the motion passed, no, and the mayor, mayor was against. So the motion passes 5-4.
Okay, move on.
All right, the next item I see is consider awarding a contract for snow removal for 2021, 2022. This is for parking lots when city doesn't plow and for people that don't don't plow their snow, and we have to remove it and charge them, right?
Yeah, this supplements our in-house parking or in-house snow plowing. So we usually put out RFPs for assistance for snow removal, and that
I'd like to know what we just voted on, what width and what, I guess I got lost somewhere along the line.
the vote passed to go with a 12-foot travel and an 8-foot parking lane. That was the recommendation that the Board of Public Works voted on right now.
All right, thank you.
So going back to snow removal, we put out RFPs for snow removal, and this supplements our in-house. So when we're in our downtime, so in between, like we're plowing all day and the guys go home for their off time, we do have supplemental, especially around City Hall, Police Department, on those times that we need help. And there's certain parking lots that we get help with too, just because our staff is out and about doing the road. So we need it helps us get things done faster. So we sent out RFP. This year, we only received one back from Rowell's Auto Body and Snow Removal. And we've had Rowell's for, Luke, how many years we've had Rowell's now? 4 or 5 years? 5 years now. Luke has had nothing but good things to say about Rowell's Auto Body for this. Very responsive. Luke's on the phone with them how many times during a snowstorm, getting things figured out. And our recommendation is to continue with Rowell's at this point in time. He's been doing a good job. So we're asking to award the supplemental snow removal contract with Rowell's Auto Body and Snow Plowing for the 2021, 2022 snow season.
Make the motion to go with. I'll second it.
Motion made and second to go with Raoul. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carried. Recommend council an agreement for engineering services for 2022 road improvement project Lions, Avon and Lima Street.
So as you might recall, we are targeting those three roads as listed for our 2022 road improvement project. If you remember, I know the mayor, John Shea, I can't remember who else, went on the beaten paths in the 5th district and got surveys done for that community development block grant, CDGB block grant that we got. So we've got over $300,000 in grant funding to help those roads for reconstruction projects. So we need to get engineering going on that for the design work. So what they do is they go out and do their survey work, they do design work, so that we're ready to do a bidding shortly after the first of the year. Usually it's January, February that we want to do the bidding, because we want to get that bidding out there. We don't want to bid out in April, because then all the bidding for a lot of other projects are done, and then we're kind of like second fiddle for everything. So we want to make sure we're, up in the front end of the bidding process for being attractive. So what I'm asking is for approving the engineering services agreement so we can get engineering going for that project, because we can't start this in January after the first of the year. We got to get going now.
No, the engineering company, they're gonna look at everything.
Sanitary sewer is okay, because that was replaced in the 80s. So sanitary
know.
sewer. And Ben has been televising the storm sewer so that if there's compromises in the storm sewer system, that we can identify those in spot repair for those type of things. So hopefully spot repair.
What about curb and gutter?
Curb and gutter will be spot repair
And
replaced
taking
as
the
needed.
stumps that are pushing up in the middle of the road out.
Yep, that too.
I live down there.
Yep,
I can show you all kinds of spots.
exactly. So any of this spot repairs for curb and gutter, the bad spots, anywhere it's bad. Water, New London Utilities right now is doing a bunch of work. You probably noticed they're doing some curb shut off replacements and stuff like that. So they're getting ahead of the game before the new road goes in. But sanitary sewer, we're not expecting to do anything because we've had that televised and it's been replaced in the 80s. It's good. Storm sewer is being televised now. I'm hoping it's just spot repairs, because if it's a complete storm sewer reconstruction, it's going to get a lot more expensive. Luke, we're planning on replacing all the inlets, I believe, for the most part. Storm sewer inlets are old and small, so we want to replace those. But it's not going to be a full reconstruction, curb to curb, full
I understand
utilities.
that.
Yep. So, but yeah, definitely storm sewer and curb and gutter spot repairs by far. Exact same thing we did on Warner Allen, spot repairs of the utilities and spot repair of the curb and gutter, and then 100% new asphalt. for the driveway.
Do we have any lead services down there?
I think they're all changed.
Utilities was working on some of that. I can't remember. They've got a list. We've talked about lead services here and there in a bunch of places. I can't remember if that's, I guess the next
Not
utility
many.
meeting, you can talk to them about that.
Yeah,
Because
according to Jay, there's not many in town here, that services.
I know when they redone the sewer, they changed the water services to most of the houses.
I think they're required by law to do that.
And I take that back. I think on the public side, so the utility side, from the curb stop to the road, I think is good. But I think from the curb stop to the house, I think there might be some.
I know mine is covered.
Yeah, but I think Jason was talking about a grant program in the future that for the private side, the homeowner side, from the curb stop to the house, he was going to look at a grant to assist with that project. But I think from the curb stop to the main, I think is current.
Have we ever talked to anybody other than McMahon for any of our services?
We have in the past, but I've pretty much stuck with McMahon. I've been watching their prices. So whenever they give us a bid, I can see how much their engineering is compared to the project. And typically you'll get anywhere from 10 to 15% engineering for a project. I've seen projects that are up to 20, 22%, and that's high. A lot of the projects McMahon's been doing is in that 7 to 12% range. So they've been pretty consistent on their prices. But a while ago, we went out and we asked for bids for a bunch of different engineering services, and McMahon was one of the better ones at the time. They also do our GIS, which is good because all our GIS works goes straight to them. But there is something to be said with having a relationship and sticking with one engineering firm if you can, depending on the cost. Just for, they understand us, they understand our community and rock with that. If McMahon ever has a problem or we see a major price increase, then obviously I would recommend that we go back and, solicit for bids again.
Yeah, I just, at times, I think it's a good idea to check with other companies. And
But I've been watching their prices, so whenever I look at their engineering, I can do that comparison to see whatever their rate is for engineering, and usually it's that 7 to 12%, which is pretty comparable.
We use them, John, for an awful lot of county jobs too. Like,
And you do feel this is too big of a job to keep in-house?
We don't have an engineer for engineering for in-house. I mean, we have to engineer the solid.
What do you need from us?
Approval of this agreement to hire McMahon for doing that work for those three
Make that
roads.
motion.
motion made and seconded to recommend council to an agreement, engineering services 2022 road improvement projects, Lyons, Avon, Lima Street. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. 2022 capital projects list.
You missed number 8.
Oh, sorry about that, Mayor. Consider proposal to add funding signage to road improvement projects.
So what I proposed was all the projects that have done in New London to post a sign up what funds were used. Backing that up with CDBG money or road tax money. Just letting the city know what we've actually done, where that money's been, kind of in your face, look at where it's going. We do get hit up a lot. Where's this money? Where's that money? People aren't reading the minutes. They don't come to meetings and stuff. I've seen this throughout some other communities. I just thought we'd bring it here and discuss that.
Great idea.
I've seen it in different places too, where they'll have up saying what this money is being spent for. I think it's a good idea too.
I think we should just add something to our website, make it more fluid, can add to it, more cost effective.
The signage is pennies on a dollar. I mean, they're really not that great of an expense. That's why, I mean, looking into it, that's why I
Where would
proposed
you
it.
put it, and would it, you could just as easily direct somebody to the website versus, oh, go look at this corner, here's this, or where would it?
For
be?
starters, they're not going to the website at all.
Yeah. most
They're
of
not,
people
it's
don't.
already, the information's already there. I was
But
trying
like
to,
in
When they have the sign up, of what's going on, it's funded by.
funded by, yeah.
So is it a permanent sign that will stay there?
I
forever?
would assume so, just kind of like a street sign. You could put it on a street sign, you could attach it. I mean, I don't know what our ordinances are, but on that, but funded by 2022 wheel tax.
Well, when the girls or boys win something at state, sign outside of town, everybody sees that.
Man,
I don't think I think it's a good idea to let people know where
Great
money's
idea.
being spent.
Make a motion that we add that to the signs.
I'll second it. Motion made and seconded. My only concern a little bit on this is, do we get feedback on why we aren't doing other roads? I mean, I kind of like the idea of showing where we're spending our money, but you get some of these nitpicky people.
They're
You're
gonna
always-
complain about the money for the signs.
Oh,
you're gonna have all that.
You're gonna have that on, if all the streets in town were great, you're gonna have somebody piss in the morning because there's a little stone in the middle of the street.
My thought process is moving forward, trying to do something and curb what we have now. I mean, this is something in the future that if you're not getting the results you want, you can always change it.
Could you bring to the next meeting some examples of other communities that have done that? Because I've never seen a sign like that. It'd be nice to see, something before we agree to it. You know what I mean? how other communities would have do it, have done it.
That's,
Some instances of that, not so much roads. Acton has a sign out there that for their sturgeon trail. That this funding came from such and such a place. And I think there's some out here on our sturgeon trail that says who paid for this stuff that's being done.
Yep. I haven't
And
seen
that's
it.
kind of what he's talking
I haven't
about.
seen it much on the local level, but the federal and state level, anytime there's a DNR project, you'll see that this project was financed through LRIP funding or other type of things, or, in the federal, I remember when Obama was in office, and you remember that a big, push when Obama had a lot of money out there. I remember this sign that had the circle sign with the 4 different quadrants, and all his projects, they had to put this signage up. So I haven't seen it on the local level, but the state and federal projects, yeah, you see it sometimes.
I'm not spending a lot of money on it. I don't think it's that bad of an idea.
Costs very little.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Billy was the only opposed, correct?
I'll oppose with her. Why
Who
not?
opposed?
You what?
Michelle, you got that?
Yep. Only one, right?
And
Billy
Tim.
and Tim.
Tim Dragman.
Yeah, why not?
Now I got it.
Okay, now we can move to 9.
Capital project. So
project.
last week, Luke talked about the operating budget. So this is a listing of the capital projects we have kind of earmarked in our works for proposals for 2022. I'll start off by saying we always propose these things. We don't get all of it funded. We don't have enough money, but these are the things that are kind of higher on our list right now that are in our targets. So we have a loader, and Luke is here. So if there's any specific questions about a piece of equipment or something, Luke can jump in. But we've got a loader that needs to be replaced, 2008 loader. We've talked about in the past getting some type of a brine system for anti-icing application. So we haven't done that yet, but that's been kind of on the list. We've got another dump truck on our list that is getting older. If you recall, we did have a bunch of our dump trucks on a 15-year schedule. And what happened was that was getting a little too long. We had 2 trucks that all of a sudden we had to do emergency purchases. So we did bring that down to a 12-year ideal cycle. So that would be replacing this one. Portable jetter. That's a small jetter. We've got enough problems in a year that we have backups, whether it's in the parks or at our buildings. We have sewer backups on the smaller scale. So, I mean, we just had a backup. What was our last one? At the pool. At the pool, we had in Hatton Park. So we had to bring in Kettle or someone else to come jet those lines. This will give us the option of having a small portable walk behind jetter that instead of waiting for a contractor to come in, we could take care of these areas in our own. So we probably have enough backups in a year that to pay for itself, honestly. So that's something for public on the facility side. And then facilities, we also have a pickup truck that's on our radar as well. Projects. I got a call to, it's not the town of Liberty, it's actually Maple Creek. I got a call in the town of Maple Creek to see if this is still a go, because the older chairman wanted us to split a cost of a culvert replacement on Spur Road with the town of Maple Creek. That individual's no longer there, I found out, so I'm talking to the new person to see if this is still on the radar, but they wanted to split a culvert that half of it's in the city, half of it's in the township. So that would be for consideration there. Luke and I are working with McMahon right now, stormwater ditch improvements on Industrial Loop Road. If you recall in my staff notes, and I think I've mentioned this at a previous meeting, we are working with Enterpipe on the south side here. We have a drainage ditch right here. So here's the corner of Beckett Road and an Industrial Loop Road. So the railroad tracks, Titan Industries here. There is a drainage ditch right here, and there's a culvert underneath the road right here. And that culvert collects quite a bit of storm water that collects on this side of the road. And it goes underneath here and then drains and then goes over to the river. This drainage ditch is eroding. There is an easement that we're responsible for the maintenance. So Interpipe brought that to our attention that they'd like to see this repaired. They have a walking bridge right here and it's actually getting compromised as well. So we've been talking with McMahon about engineering with that. We also found out when we went over and looked at it, this culvert underneath the road here actually now over time has eroded. So there's water going under the culvert instead of through the culvert. So that culvert is starting to get compromised underneath the road as well. So we need to do something before this culvert fails or collapses.
Where did they go with that from Hillshire? Right where they crossed the
Yep.
road?
So Hillshire's forced main, their forced sanitary main, came through their property somewhere in here, then crossed the road, and then it went down Industrial Loop Road. And
What did they do about that drainage? Were they underneath that?
I'm thinking it was a.
The ditch you're talking about?
Yeah, it's got to be underneath it because it was boring. They bored it
Okay,
quite a ways.
okay.
Was it in the road or was it in the right of way? Yeah, it was on the south and east side, right?
Correct.
Yep.
It ran just past Forts and then shot over.
Yep. And they came up here and they pushed it over to get in the river over here. But they were way under. They didn't
Okay.
compromise that. There's no indication that they compromised that at all. So I'm working with McMahon right now and working with Interpipe, and they want to actually improve their walkway here somehow. So we are cost sharing a DNR permit for this project. But our responsibility is to maintain the ditch and it's eroding. So we're talking about, and unfortunately, it is considered wetlands. We had it mapped. So you can't just put riprap in there. You got to jump through the hoops because it's considered wetlands. And so we're talking about like a geomat, a plastic geomat that allows the vegetation to grow through, but that would prevent it from continuous erosion in the future. So that's that project right here. And I don't have a cost for that yet. We're working on that. And then in the past, we've put $25,000 a piece in for a street patching program and our annual sidewalk patching program as well. So those are the projects kind of in our sites right now for putting for 2022 for public works and facilities on the agenda. Again, all this will not be considered or not all this will be funded just because once you get the police and Parks and Rec and everyone else together, we got to take priorities because we don't have enough funding for everything. So, but we usually bring the public works things to this committee. Ginger will talk about the Parks and Rec capital projects tomorrow night. If there's something you see on here that you want more information, if there's something you don't see on here, the purchase of that brine system, that actually came from you guys in the past. Staff, we did not have that on our radar, and that was something that you guys said that we want to look at. So that's something that's, the committee and the council has requested to add on.
What exactly is that? Could you explain?
Anti-brine.
Yeah.
So a tank, and it's got a brine solution, so a salty solution. You get that from Hortonville, right? Hortonville. And you put a brine down, and you probably see it when you go to Outagamie County. They do it a lot, and you see these white strips down the road.
Highway 15.
Highway
Yep.
15, you see it quite
It's
often.
like you do it before a storm.
Yep.
And then it's like a pre-treat. It
Yep.
doesn't.
Oh, really?
allow
It's
for-
exactly, you're pre-treating the
Yeah,
road
it's
and you're getting that
nice.
salt layer on there. So it's a little bit better. It's a little easier. It kind of melts that contact. So it's easier to scrape it off. Also with salt, if you pre-treat with salt,
It just flakes away.
the cars can just spread it, keep on
Yeah.
spreading into the ditch
Goes
where
away.
this gets to the road.
That's
So-
great. I'm really excited for that because I know, 2 years ago we had that ice that was just
Well,
the
it's so
roads
hard
were.
to keep up sometimes, and this
Now-
just gives the plow drivers like.
And this would only be for our collectors and our arterials, our main drag stuff. We would
Yeah.
not be doing this in every single residential street. We wouldn't have the funding for it by any means. So, but it's something we can talk about in the future. So,
Mr. Chairman, this is our wish list, correct?
correct.
You want us to say aye?
You're not really approving this. I guess you can make a motion to say this is the list that we want to pass on to the capital
That makes
projects
sense.
committee.
I think it's sensible.
Yep.
I don't know, do we need a motion?
We don't.
You're not approving these.
We're just gonna bring this to the committee.
Yep,
Yeah.
this is the wish list that will be added to the main city wish list, the capital projects committee. That's the committee that actually consider and approves projects and equipment.
Exactly.
Basically, you're looking for any additions or corrections.
Right. Hearing none, we'll move to director's report.
I don't think I had too much exciting. There were no service anniversaries. Warner Allen project obviously completed. We're working on getting the final cost estimates in for the final payments for the contractors and subcontractors. We have to work on the assessments for the, 7 houses, whatever it was, that we replaced the laterals for. So we have to send them their assessments for that, get that out. And then as you know, as you probably know, we're looking at advertising for the new public works director position. That advertisement went out today. So if you know anybody who has that talent and experience, it's posted on the city's website now. They can advertise on there. Closing date is October 24th. And once we get to that point, Mike, and I don't know if anybody else wants to be on the interview committee, but I'm sure Mike, and I don't know if, whatever else, we can kind of figure out who's going to make up the interview committee, but we typically have that. And it's actually a mayor's appointment. So the mayor makes the final recommendation to council for that appointment because it's a department head. That's it.
Okay, future agenda items.
I guess we'll bring back Gordy's request. I don't know if you guys want to do another public meeting with that to get public input. I don't know how you guys want to do that.
I told you about it before, but I got a guy down here on West North Water Street. Every time it rains, the street gets flooded.
Mhm.
And he blows up my phone every time it rains.
Mhm.
What's the city gonna do about it? Or the property owner or whatever? It's on Radke, where Radke's built their duplexes.
Yep.
Because all the water comes off his lawn. And there's no ditch, it's just sloped right to the street.
Yep.
And that shouldn't be.
Luke and I briefly talked about that, but we'll have to talk. It's going to be an engineering thing. Obviously there's going to be something that have to be
Every
done with
time
that.
it rains, my phone blows off the wall. What are you gonna do about it?
And maybe there's something, depending on what we do with the 3 streets that are over there, if we're in there, depending on what could be done, what needs to be done. Maybe it's something we add into that project.
Maybe you could.
I don't know.
It's down 1 block from
I'd have to
Lion
look.
Street, but
We'd have to go down there and look at it and see. I mean, it
there's
it
no
just
curb
backs
and
up and
gutter.
then it catches up, right? And drains.
Yeah, it that must go through the ground.
Mm.
Because it just lays halfway across the road. Yeah, it doesn't go no place, just sits.
That'll be another project. I mean,
Yeah.
that we would have to look at.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Is that vote for the road width going to council, or is that done here? I
Like said,
lost.
it doesn't necessarily have to go to council because that's just having our engineers work on a project. I mean, if it was a contract, if you were approving funding, it'd be one thing to go to council, but I mean, unless you guys wanted to go. to council.
But to have such a close vote, don't you think the whole council should be involved in? Because otherwise you're gonna have to engineer it twice. Or maybe not, or maybe once, depending on what the council thinks.
We can do that.
Good idea, Dave.
Unless there's opposition, we'll add it up to the council agenda.
We have to have a motion second, to take it to council. We'll just take it to council.
Let's look at the council. Yep, we'll take it to council. We'll put it on the council agenda.
Oh, okay. Good. Anything else, Chad? Move to adjourn.
We got
That's meeting.
one thing there, don't we?
Meeting date,
Discuss next meeting date.
Yep, next meeting date the normal meeting date would be November 1st. So unless that doesn't work for everyone.
Okay, Fred, you want to get out?
Okay, Fred, what's your problem?
Fred, go for it. Go
What?
for it.
Hey, what's good, sure.
Second.
We had another question to ask.
Oh.
Seconded.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?